you to the Crichton Sub Committee Meeting of Monday the 7th of November. Can I remind members that the meeting is being recorded and will subsequently be made available to the public for listening purposes. Can I ask Claire for the Sederunt and any apologies?
Afternoon, Chairman, members. Apologies from Councillor Nicholson, and we're missing Councillors Davidson and McGregor. Apologies.
Apologies from Councillor McGregor.
Thank you.
Okay. I think Ronnie might be here. He's at the ceremony at the new North West Dumfries campus, so he should be here shortly. Item number 2, do we have any declarations of interest? No. Okay. Next item, number 3, is the minute of the meeting of the 10th of June. This is for noting, because it's obviously been before full council. Members happy to note the minute? Okay. Okay, can we turn to item number 4, which is the update of the Crichton Trust Business Plan 2015-16. Pleased that we've got Alec and Graham from the Crichton Trust to answer any questions that members may have. Can I ask the Director if there's anything he wishes to add to the report before members?
Nothing to add to the report, Chair. Thank you.
Okay, can I open it up to members' questions? Ian?
Thanks, Chairman. I suppose just as being a new member to this committee, this doesn't really come forward far enough. There's just 2 or 3 probably pieces of information, try and bring myself up to speed. Item 4, in the appendix I'm looking at, Chairman, the Memorial Church Crypt Visitor Centre development, it says it should be on target for 2017. There's some costs here. I just wondered, the total estimated cost is £1.5 million. I wondered where the rest of that funding would potentially come from. Is that being asked for by the council? Where will that come from? Box 5, let's get sporty. I wondered, could I just put a wee bit more information in regards to that? It's ongoing. It talks about the social enterprise and different things, but I just would like to know a wee bit more about that. Box 6, I suppose that's in regards to the public, well, it's not public, it's public, would have been the public drinking water supply at one time, but certainly the water supply up there, which is owned by the Crichton Trust themselves. So, indicative cost, I wonder, because they talk about refurbishing that, trying NHS maybe be involved, but I would imagine with the hospital moving, there will be a change in direction, so I can understand why they'll not be wanting to fund that after a certain amount of time, and they'll look to recharge possibly. So to bring it up to an appropriate level, appropriate specification, what's the indicative cost in regards to that? I was interested in the student residences as well in box 7, that's still ongoing. I just wondered again, what does that look like, particularly in regards to Scottish Government, their potential plans? Is what's being proposed or looked at there, does that align with possible reduction? I think that's where I'm probably coming through there. Box 9. I suppose it was where I was looking at. I've wrote here, it's wee reminders I've got to go back and think what I was trying to pick up on. It's a red light was flashing in regards to me with the likes of this. I suppose it was going back to University of West of Scotland again. It's a year-to-year leases what they're taking up there, where the rest are looking at 15-year leases, I think it is. So I thought that would have been I don't know what the level of funding they supply in regards to the funding that comes into the trust up there, but I haven't got that level of detail. So again, in regards to that, have you got any more background information? And I suppose, no, box 11, that's fine. That's pretty much kind of as a starter, Chairman. Happy if we get some of them answered, please.
I don't think there's any boxes left, so it must be a good starter. Hand over to Alec.
Thanks, Chairman. The Crichton Memorial Church and Crypt and Visitor Centre, we have indicative prices of the order of 1.5 million. It has not been out to tender. We have architectural drawings which require further work on them by quantity surveyors. The QSs are giving us estimated costs at the moment. The cost of refurbishing or dealing with the fabric of the church tower and the external part of the church that wasn't dealt with in 2012 is about £700,000. There's quite a considerable amount of money involved in doing the refurbishment of the church. The good thing is that it lasts for another 50 years after that. The Crichton Undercroft, the estimated costs we've got are of the order of, if you can count, about £750,000. We're still working on that. There's quite a lot of work to do on that. Insofar as the funding is concerned, sir, the council have allocated £100,000. They did that last year. That they very kindly agreed to carry forward to this year. A small amount of that money, about £19,000, has been used paying professional fees to date to get all of the drawings, etc. done. The trust has pledged £50,000. We are currently in discussion with a number of national bodies, including Environmental Heritage Scotland, Scottish Natural Heritage, the Big Lottery, and various other external funding sources. The intention is very much that this will be something that we will take forward. We're not asking the council to fund vast amounts of money here. We appreciate that the council have already put quite a contribution into the building at Neuros, which is now complete, and that they have already pledged £100,000. That's very much being used with the authority of the council as seed corn funding. You can't make applications for funding without having plans and proposals in place. So we are moving on that. It would be fair to say that the initial estimates of when the work would be undertaken were perhaps a bit ambitious. We are now going forward with not less ambitious, but realistic plans would probably be the term that you would want to use.
Chair, I wonder if I could just supplement that. It's a big project, and that exactly where we are at the moment. I think the last point is worth bearing in mind that this project raises the aspirations of many people, but equally it's something that needs to be looked at very, very carefully from the point of view of its justification. Reference is made in the notes to the need to develop a business case. So actually we are not going anywhere near quantity surveyors and contractors for tenders until a lot more work has been done with the potential funding partners in terms of the fundamental justification for the project. And I think you'll find that that'll be a debate which will involve the council and other people locally and further afield for some time to come. The concept is absolutely brilliant. It's absolutely central to what the Crichton is about and where it should be going. It's something that, in terms of the first phase of work that was originally envisaged in terms of the repairs required, was something that might have been undertaken fairly quickly. But as the idea has developed, I think it's one that merits careful consideration, and is something that we'll probably come back here for another couple of meetings yet before we can say, right, we're ready to go.
Can I just on the Crichton Church, we'll come back to Ian's other points. So in terms of the timescales you're looking at, I mean, I think first of all to say is I think it's a fantastic project, and I think that the church has huge potential, as well as being important to preserve from a historic point of view. The potential for bringing visitors into the Crichton site itself, for increasing the number of events that you host there, is enormous, and it is always a project the council are keen to support. But you have in the plan December 2017, based given the financial challenges you have around securing the additional funds needed, is that still a relatively realistic target date?
I think being realistic, we'd be hoping that we'd be able to start work during financial year 2017-18. Whether it'll be in the beginning of 2018 rather than at the end of 2017 will largely depend on the funding streams that we get available to us. But that's something that is, if I can say, it's something of a moving feast at the moment. It's very much dependent on external sources of funding, and also, as Graham has alluded to, funders are now looking for business plans going forward rather than just what you're going to do with the bricks and mortar. They are looking to make sure that their investment is a working investment and benefits the community, which has always been the intention of the trust.
Okay. Ian, do you want to come back on the Crichton Church?
Aye, that particular point, because maybe it's a theme throughout all the questions I asked when it comes to investment, because there was stuff in the press a number of months ago now about in regards to potential couple £100 million worth of inward investment into that particular area in Dumfries potentially. So I just wondered if there was any tie-up there. Was that possibly a source of funding using that route?
If I can answer that, Chairman, please. It was originally anticipated that it might be a source of funding. As we have discussed matters further with the potential inward investor, it's become clear that while the Trust was a catalyst in bringing the interest into Dumfries and Galloway, the Trust is not the vehicle to deliver the inward investment programme that's envisaged. That's something, and I'm not going to speak for the council, but that's something that we've been the council, Scottish Enterprise and NHS D&G are currently discussing. As I understand it, the trust will play its part. The investor has made it clear that they look for a return on their investment, and what the trust is trying to do is to get investment in whereby we're not actually borrowing money, we're able to downsource grant aid. Obviously, if we have to borrow money, then we would look at that very carefully going forward. But at the moment, we are looking to source grant aid for the project rather than someone to come in and invest and expect a return on their money.
The next point you had, Ian, was on Let's Get Sporty. Was there something specific you were asking there?
Which I just mean, taking it from a point of view where I've got a lack of understanding what these projects are about, because I'm only just a new member, obviously, as of today. I'm trying to get an understanding is there more information in regards could be added to that, could have been added to that box where there's a background information there, just to give me a better understanding of what's going on there.
Chairman, quite happy always to provide members with further information, either formally in a committee or informally during a discussion. Situation is that there was some more detailed information given to the subcommittee at the last meeting. This report is very much by way of a progress and an update report. Maybe insofar as the members concerned, I appreciate you need to get up to speed. Insofar as the members concerned, the Let's Get Sporty issue, we have had Let's Get Sporty on the estate for several successful days, and we ran this July, August, a Let's Get Sporty Day, which was well attended, well used by the folks of Dumfries and wider afield. What we're looking to do is to get a social enterprise onto the site. It's not actually on the Crichton site. The building that we're looking at is in fact owned by Dumfries and Galloway, NHS Dumfries and Galloway, and there are discussions ongoing as to how that can best be developed as a social enterprise. It would be fair to say that my understanding is it's in its very early days yet, but there are discussions ongoing, and certainly the Trust would participate in those discussions insofar as it can.
I mean, it might be helpful, Ian, obviously members of the committee will have a copy of the full business plan for the Crichton Trust. It might be helpful to have a glance at that. I'm sure officers can arrange to circulate that to yourself if you haven't seen that yet. I think it's in the minute of one of the previous meetings, but it'd certainly be helpful because it actually gives you the wider information around some of these projects. Obviously, what we're looking at today is is just an update on progress with each of those particular projects. The next one you mentioned, Ian, was the Crichton water infrastructure. Was there anything specific there, or was it just an update?
It was, Chairman. No, thanks for the chance. I mean, I suppose I actually worked on that. The water tank that's referred to there about 32 years ago, believe it or not, when I was just after serving my time, and it brought the whole thing back, and you've got it was archaic, the infrastructure at that time, so now it must be ready to fall apart, I would think. So I would have thought there'd be some kind of indicative cost. That's fundamental to progressing this. Have we got any indication whatsoever what kind of size a project this would be? Because you're looking at, I think, the old cast iron mains, refurbishment water tank, new water treatment infrastructure, and so on and so forth. It'd been good to have an idea of what kind of size of scale of projects the Trust are looking at.
Thanks, Chairman. You're absolutely right. Anybody who's been and seen the tanks, they're a marvel of Victorian engineering. The water comes out of the ground into a big tank, which is like a swimming pool, gets pumped up the hill, and then is allowed to flow back down the hill by way of gravity from another Victorian swimming pool, basically. Maybe telling you the history about it, this was never the public water supply. This water supply was formed to serve the Crichton estate in its widest sense. We're not the only users. The Crichton estate uses it, the Crichton farm uses it, and there are a number of privately owned houses which have been bought over the years, which also have access to it. NHS Dumfries and Galloway have continued to maintain the water supply. My understanding, and I can be corrected in this because there are surveys being done, my understanding is that there's not a lot wrong with the pipework. The biggest issue is how to control the bacterial, and I'm not saying anybody's going to die or anything like that, but you've got environmental health are there regularly checking for water quality, checking for water purity, because it's a private water supply. NHS Dumfries and Galloway have done quite a considerable amount of work over the years on maintaining it and making sure that it meets the water quality requirements and water quality regulations. what they're now saying, and quite rightly in terms of their title, they no longer need the water supply. The water supply serves the estate, it serves the farm, so why would they pay for maintaining a water supply? We're currently in negotiations with them as to how best to address the issue. It could be dealt with, and I'm going to say this, as a relatively simple programme of looking at the dosing plant and making sure that the plant which doses the water actually works. You could then go from that to an all singing, all dancing, dig a new artesian well, replace the entire system. That's something that the working group is currently looking at. I think the figures that I've seen, I wouldn't like to quote them because there's such a wide range of figures depending on what you do, but this working group will come to a conclusion within the next 6 months, and I will be coming back to the council will get a further report in 6 months' time as to exactly where we are with it. We are including council officers within the working group because there's no point in us trying to tell council officers what does and doesn't require to be done. These include environmental health and engineers, etc. So it's work in progress, sir. That's bringing it up to the council's attention at the moment at our level because it's part of the work that the trust are doing to make sure that we maintain the water supply on the estate.
Thanks very much for that, Chairman. In regards to, if we see an update in that in 6 months, we'd be quite keen to see that. Thank you.
Okay, and the next one you raised, Ian, was on the student residences. Is there anything particular, Ian? Obviously the report indicates that
I suppose I could have tied it up to a later item as well. I thought we're looking at that, and are we looking at in real terms in a reduction in what we're doing there because of the potential strategic plan that the Scottish Government has in regards to University of West Scotland up in the Crichton campus here? I just wondered if that was that the case. That's what sprung to my mind, and that's what I was trying to tease out in regards to that, Chairman. And it kind of relates to item box 9 as well.
Thanks, Chairman. Obviously, I can't comment, nor can the Trust, on what Scottish Government are or are not doing in relation to the delivery of the educational curriculum. What I can say is that we've renewed and very welcomed the renewal of a lease from Glasgow for a period of 15 years. That is a massive commitment from Glasgow University to Dumfries. The University of West of Scotland, as I understand it, are currently reviewing their operations. They are currently talking to the Funding Council, talking to Scottish Government about their allocations. On that basis, they felt it would be premature to renew for a longer period than 1 year, but they are renewing the lease on an annual basis. I cannot commit them, but I have no intelligence which would lead me to believe they're moving off the site. We are also looking with other institutions as to the possibility of their collaboration and cooperation. And of course, the big one we've got is absolutely cheek by jowl. There are 7,000 students now going to Dumfries and Galloway College, which is a great thing as far as the site is concerned because it's bringing youngsters onto the site on a daily basis virtually. So I'm sorry, I can't really comment any further than to say that we are reviewing the requirement for residences. Obviously, were the Barony College moving to the Crichton, and I can't comment on that, then the requirement for residences might be slightly different.
Thanks, Chairman. No, I think that's as good an answer as I could have actually expected in regards to that. Probably would be a bit more information than what I expected to receive, but it still comes back to the point for myself. You've got, I suppose, a year's lease there, and I thought it'd be fundamental to the business case. So the question, whether it can be answered or no, Chairman, whether in this remit or out with, but if it was to be withdrawn, say, listen, there's a year's notice, what effect does that have on the overall strategic business plan in the Crichton Trust? That's probably where I've come to at that point, because they have got that ability to do that.
Chairman, thanks. I can reassure the member I don't intend to be disrespectful to the University of West of Scotland, but they're only one tenant on the site. We've 1,000 people working on the site. The income from rentals is of the order of £3.1 million, and we are still trying to fill the site. You'll see later on it's 86% let of lettable space. There are buildings on the site that require work on it, but that's part of the ongoing operation of the Trust. That's what the Council have asked the Trust to do. So basically, I'm not being disparaging, but it would not fundamentally alter the business plan.
That's reassuring, Chairman.
Okay, in terms of, you've almost merged into point number 9, which is around the marketing of the site. I think you said, Alec, it was about 86% let at the moment. Is there anything else you want to add on number
No,
9?
I joined the last question and number 9 kind of together there. I kind of alluded to that, but no, I think it was answered. Number 9, you're right. Number 9 was actually answered there. All my questions have been satisfied, Chairman.
Graham, do you want to come in?
I'd just like to add a very quick supplement, really, and that is that a lot of the Trust's effort has, in recent past, has actually been geared through things like the emerging strategy we're going to discuss and the development framework that we presented to you last year, to create a framework within which we can accommodate as many different kinds of demands on us as possible. But at the end of the day, we are dependent on people coming to us with their proposals and us trying to fit them in. There's very little we can do to actually make any of the educational establishments' plans happen if they themselves can't do that. And the role of government even is, I'm sure government has a back pocket plan or aspiration it would like to have for all of the further and higher education institutions in their hometowns. But at the end of the day, the funding route is through the Funding Council, which is a student place-based funding route, and it's up to each institution to develop its own capital investment plans in whatever way it can for wherever it wants. We are trying to position the Crichton and Dumfries and Galloway in the best possible way to accommodate any of the demands that come to us, and that's really been the name of the game.
Thanks for that, Graham. Okay, other members, any questions? Andrew?
Thank you, Chair. It's really to get some history on it, if you don't mind me asking, to do with the water company that was bottling out of the system that's presently there. I take it they're no longer functioning, but do we have any knowledge at all as to what their turnover was and why they ceased?
I have no information regarding the background. I can tell you that they ceased to supply water some considerable period of time ago. It goes without saying that as we go forward, when we're looking at the improvements necessary to the water supply system, we will be going back, and we have already had an expression of interest from a water bottling company. I can't take it any further than that, because that's all it is, an expression of interest. They remembered the fact, I think the water was sold on Virgin Airlines or something like that. They remember that fact, and they said, if you're doing something with the water supply, we would be prepared to have a look at it. We've already had some studies by Strathclyde University on the supply as well, sir.
Tom, do you want to come in? No, not going to get a history lesson, are we, Tom? You were there at the first bottle, weren't you? Yeah. Just remind members to switch your microphone on when you're speaking, because then it won't be recorded, and we'll have missed those words of wisdom, Tom, for the recording. You won't get that on YouTube afterwards, but I'm sure we picked up all the point. Does any other member have any questions on the update on the business plan? We're happy to go to the recommendations. Okay, I think it's fair to say we've reviewed the update. Any particular matters we wish to refer to the Trust, or are we quite happy with the answers received? Ian?
I was going to pick up on it, I noted it, but I didn't. But Andrew, I think Andrew picked up on an important point there. There's possibly an enterprise that could be a source of income for it. Maybe I want to make sure I'm going down the right lines here. But I think if there's one bit I would pick up in here as a possible revenue stream that certainly the organisation could pick up on, whether it's bottling, whether it's distillery, whatever it may be, it could be numerous opportunities. Because the one thing that's distinct and stuck in my mind is the quality of water up in that area was exceptionally good.
I'm sure that's been noted by the officers. Okay, thank you very much, members. Can we turn now to item number 5? Okay, this is the Strategy, Governance, Finance and Operational Management Report. It gives members an overview of the current position. Can I ask the Director if there's anything to add to the report that's before members?
Nothing to add to the report, Chair. Thank you.
Okay, can I open up to any members' questions? Tom?
I'm just wondering why they're putting it back into one organisation, because I thought the advice was back when it started that you could have the trust, which was a charitable trust, but in order for it to undertake commercial activities, it had to have basically an arm's length commercial organisation. There's been changes to the charity laws that allows it to operate as one organisation now.
Chair, from my point of view as chair, I've been chair of the trust. I've been acutely aware for 11 years now. Initially as a sort of backbencher when I first joined the trustees, that the trust was responsible to the council directly, both as one of the owners at the time and now the sole owner of the trust, and also as the body leasing the site to us. We had a huge responsibility. But the trust has actually had virtually no capacity other than to talk and to prepare strategic plans and ideas, or even just strategies and ideas. And the tension or the separation between the trust and the delivery body has got to the point that it's worked very successfully in the initial years, obviously, because it delivered some outstanding work originally. But you may remember that the council, quite correctly in my view, called in bigger economics to do a review of the arrangements about 5 years ago. And that led to a really identification of 3 issues that had to be addressed. The first 2, the council dealt with them, which was a constitutional situation whereby the council shared the ownership of the trust with 3 other bodies from the start. And the second one was that the council was sought to exercise its own aspirations for the trust by having a majority on the board of the trust itself. After a very, I think, very meaningful year of deliberation, the decision was to ask the 3 other owners of the trust to stand down so the council had sole ownership, to withdraw the councillors and to set up this subcommittee so that we had a far more specific form of relationship between our trust and between between the council and the council through this subcommittee in a formal way, which I think has proven over the last couple of years to be extremely successful. The third issue that was identified was that the so-called subsidiary company, the CDC company, which was not, in my view, a true subsidiary because it was never set up by the trust. The trust had no right to nominate directors of it. The trust had no day-to-day influence over it because the memorandum and articles of CDC never made any reference to the trust. And as a result of that, it was able to operate the property portfolio in whatever way it wished. That simply didn't square with the idea of having a strategic body seeking to direct the future destiny of the Crichton. Now, as I say, it's not been something that's been obviously bad, because in the early years the alignment of everybody's thinking was highly successful. But at the end of the day, when we came to a stage where the trust had very clear strategic direction and we had no capacity, we had no staff except one person in the capacity of Alec Haswell as interim trust director up until recently. Before that, an interim chief executive seconded from the council. Before that, a senior person who fluctuated between one organisation and the other depending on where the strength was acquired. And before that, simply a secretary. And no capacity at all to deliver on the strategy. The consultants made the point very, very clearly that the lack of control over the portfolio, over the property portfolio to the trust, was a major fault in the whole operation, and that had, whereas originally might not have been a problem, was becoming problematic. You might also ask the question, does the model of a trust and a subsidiary, a commercial subsidiary, not the best way financially to meet the obligations with regard to charity regulations and taxation? But in fact, and this has been one of the major benefits of Alec's work in the last year, almost year since he joined us, which is a very thorough examination of the criteria of the charity regulator and of the tax authorities, has established that if we were to bring the property under the trust, then the remaining operations of CDC would not be significant enough in terms of taxation and charity implications that it would make any difference. And we have already established in the last few months that to consolidate all the operations under the one body would be far more efficient, would be no less tax efficient, and would actually allow us to deliver more clearly on the trust objectives. This does not preclude the possibility of, let us say, hopefully, developing some even more successful commercial operations in future, which would benefit from being put at arm's length. But if we were to do that, we would create a subsidiary in terms of the trust's requirements, the trust's ownership, the trust's clear sense of direction, and the trust's ability to control it. And that would be an option available to us for the future. But consolidating right now, I think, is the culmination of 20 years' experience, which has become absolutely essential.
Excellent, Graham. I think it's fair to say this committee gave a very clear steer in terms of the direction of travel, and that rationalisation is something that that we were keen to see happen. Ivor, sorry, Jane, you were in next. Sorry, Jane, then Ivor.
Thank you. I think that was a very eloquent and elegant explanation about what happened, and I'm very happy to see this going forward in the current arrangement. I think that's the right thing to be done. Can I just ask on 2.1? This is something which has bypassed me, and I apologise for not having really absolutely got on top of this. But the Scottish Government Integrated Outcome Agreement for the educational institutions on the campus. I just wonder if somebody could give me a really very quick potted history and tell me where the council actually or where the trust thinks. I mean, I notice in this, the obvious box which talks about education. I clearly see that. But I suppose I regard that as just so fundamental to what trust is about, utterly fundamental, that if I backtrack maybe from a potted history paragraph about that, but say, when might we, I think, as a committee, maybe receive an update on this? Because I think that's so important to what this is all about, that I would like to have a separate examination of where we are with respect to the Scottish Government's Integrated Outcome Agreement for educational institutions on the campus and the trust.
Chairman, I'll do my best. I think I've got to be very careful with the councillors. The outcome agreement is led by an organisation called the Crichton Campus Leadership Group, of which Councillor Maitland is probably very well aware, in fact was probably a member of it at one point. No, the idea of the group is to lead the educational issues arising from the campus. While the Trust has its eye on education and will always participate and make sure that it's part of the leadership group and contribute to the leadership group, the Trust has got two main planks. One is to make sure that the estate runs, that the buildings are fit for purpose, that they're fully let, to make sure that the income's coming in. The second being the encouragement of the educational experience on the campus. I think following upon the bigger report, which is the one that the Chairman alluded to earlier on, it became clear that the Trust could not remain the main focus of that, and it needed a leadership group which is made up of the educational institutions on the site and indeed some off the site. the college, the Crichton Foundation and various other organisations, all of whom function on the site. It's a really good group which gets together, comes up with ideas, and the leadership group actually entered into the outcome agreement with Scottish Government. It means that we've got one voice from the Crichton estate or from the Crichton site talking to government rather than 10 or 12 different voices. It's as simple as that, Councillor Maitland. I may have given, and I see he looking very carefully at Dame Barbara who's sitting behind you, I may have given you the wrong or a slightly distorted view of it, but that's certainly my understanding of it, and I'm happy to take away and come back to the members with a written explanation as to exactly how it operates.
Maybe a useful topic of a future report and presentation to the committee may be quite helpful. For those members who are not familiar, Willie, do you want to come on this?
Yeah, just on the same subject here, in particular to reference to 6.2, in terms of the restructuring the trust, and the CDC will provide clarity of purpose in both the trust and its employees, and then it goes on to say, and enable the trust to rationalise its operations. I just wondered, in bringing the two together from the explanations that I've been given, whether indeed there will still be opportunity, and I know there has been talk or some form of discussion around the possibility of care villages and etc. So there is still an opportunity to utilise the buildings and land and so forth, that in bringing together you don't lose that opportunity in terms of expansion and what could be possibilities.
I can give a categoric assurance, Chairman. I think council officers have been involved in that as well. It's a very, very exciting concept, the care village, and it's certainly something that we are still participating in. The trust is not at the moment taking the lead role because it doesn't have the capacity to take the lead role, and I know that very much NHS D&G and hopefully the council would become involved in that. We have been attending recent meetings with Dr. David Clark, who's the author of the entire proposed project, and we will cooperate fully and do our best to make sure that something happens. Whether it'll be exactly on the estate or whether it'll be adjacent to the estate, we don't yet know. That's very much dependent on exactly what the proposal is, but it is a concept, a good concept, and we are participating in it.
Willie, do you want to come back in?
Yeah, Chair, I wasn't suggesting that the trust or the CDC take the lead. I reference what Ian was talking about in terms of the potential for the water and water company and so forth, whether indeed there would still be the potential within the concept. But is this in terms of other people doing it, and then the trust only getting whatever revenue is from the rental income of properties and so forth, rather than perhaps taking the lead on it, as you alluded to there, Alec?
I think we're still in the very early stages of discussing how that would happen. If there were an inward investment, obviously the inward investment company would be looking to get its return on its resource. But I wouldn't like to commit any further than that. All I can say is that the trust continue to cooperate as fully as they can, Councillor. There are a number of different partners involved in it, and it would be wrong of the trust to commit them in a public meeting.
Okay, Ivor.
Thank you, Chair. It's with regard to point 4 in the appendix, with the refinancing of the loans with the RBS. Now, maybe it's just when the reports were written, I'm not sure, but if you go to item 6, there's an issue with regard on the signing off of the accounts of a point with is it BDO LLP have a note on the accounts which is in question with regard to RBS refinancing, and it also states in there that they're still looking to negotiate, although it says in another one that we've actually got the negotiation done. It may be just timing issue, but just for clarification.
Absolutely, Chairman. It's a timing issue. BDO wrote these accounts way back in end of August, early September, and presented them to the board. They were presented on the basis that the negotiations were still ongoing with RBS. I am able to confirm that RBS have now committed. We are completing the formalities with RBS. We're completing the formalities to repay the historic loans. BDO already have the confirmation documents from RBS and will amend their accounts, which is one of the reasons the accounts aren't before you today, because they've not been fully through the board. They're required to go through the board before they come here. Hence the reason we've done your finance report rather than submitting the audited accounts. The audit is still ongoing.
Ian?
Thanks, Chairman. I suppose just a couple of bits of clarity first, if you don't mind. I'll try and put it into context. At paragraph 3 and 3.1, it talks about the Chief Executive's charge. I think that's Chief Executive of the Council, it being a Council report, and does that refer back to the 10th of June maybe? Was he charged at that point? How was he charged? How was he given that instruction is what I'm looking for, Chairman. And I'll tell you where I'm kind of coming from, because I want to make sure that with the Council, and I suppose the trust to a degree has went through a degree of due diligence, which I expect it will have, so I'll just refer to 3.3 where it refers to the Trust Chief Executive has prepared the appendix. I'll go to the appendix itself. As part of that, at the bottom of a bullet point, at the bottom of 1.2, the last bullet point, it refers to support the process for the appointment of a new Chief Executive. And then referred to later on in the appointment of the new Chief Executive is. I just want to make sure, which is at 5.1, make sure that there's enough due diligence taking place here so there's no possible repercussions or anything like that, because as it looks in the face of it, the perception may well be that the same person's been involved right the way through there. So I just want to make sure that there's been a degree of diligence taking place, that we're quite safe.
Graham?
I don't know if I can answer the question quite as it's put, but let me just rehearse exactly where we are and where we've come from. Since the unfortunate loss of the Trust Chief Executive at the end of last year, we realised we had to move very quickly in order to maintain leadership in the executive of the organisation. We agreed to appoint Alec Haswell on an interim basis. First of all, he was the Trust Director responsible only to the Trust, and as I've made the point, as I've been making the point earlier on, that did not include line management of the development company. But it was very important to the Trust that we appointed somebody who was able to liaise with the development company in such a way as to help us with our joint forward planning, because the issues that we've been dealing with in the last year had become paramount. And I was delighted with the progress that's been made in terms of addressing these issues. And as of the end of October, just there, last week, when the amalgamation or the rationalisation took place, Alec Haswell became the line manager of all the staff of both organisations. That equated with the post of Chief Executive of, and we agreed to make him the Chief Executive, but still on an interim basis. His contract runs until end of January in the first instance. When we appointed him last January, in fact, the paragraph, I think 1.2, is actually the list of tasks, the last one of which is to support the process for the appointment of a new Chief Executive, which we gave Alec strictly in line with his interim role. And we're still operating on that basis. And when a Chief Executive is appointed on to take us forward in the future, it will be done in a way which meets all the requirements, all the parameters for making such an important appointment. But it will be a permanent one, not an interim one as it is at the moment. Now that's an explanation of where we are at. Does it answer your question? Excuse me.
Absolutely does, Chairman.
I think it's worth stressing also, Ian, if you look at page 13 of the report, and there are 4 bullet points there in paragraph 1.1 in terms of the role of this subcommittee. We gave a very clear steer that we expected to see sound governance in terms of the trust, and a number of points that we highlighted around the finances of the trust. And this committee were very clear in that direction that we gave at the time, and obviously that work has been undertaken with additional key actions from the trust themselves.
But go back to that. I mean, I think it was exactly what I expected to hear. I think it's quite clear there. What I've heard is that there was due diligence did take place, and it's an interim position, and it's moving forward. And at the end of the day, it's for the trust to make their decisions in the best way that they feel fit. And I think the question needed to be put because there's a potential perception there, which I think the question's been answered very well.
Do we have any other members' questions? Okay, can we turn to the recommendations? Okay, members, happy to note 2.1. Okay. And obviously we have a further report today on the strategy and the finances of the trust, but is there anything else we wish to refer to the trust? Or any other questions we've got? No? No? The point that Jane raised earlier, it'd be helpful to have a report and a presentation possibly on that at a future meeting. Useful for members. Okay, thank you very much. Can we turn now to item number 6? Okay, members, this is a summary of the financial position for the year 2015-16. I think Alec alluded to the fact that the final accounts are still to go through the board, and obviously we'll then receive a report to this subcommittee on those accounts. But at the moment we have a financial report for members to consider today. Can I ask the Director if there's anything to add to that report?
Nothing to add to the report, Chair. Thank you.
Okay, can I open it up to members for any questions on the report? Ian?
Well, just as a starter for 10 on the appendix, it's 2.1, the second paragraph, and it is significant. It only refers to a figure of just over £1,000. Why is that so significant?
I think that I picked this straight up from the external auditors. I think the reason for the significance is that because the organisation was in funds and was a going concern, it was able to be wound up as a going concern. Had it not been able to be wound up as a going concern, the cost would have been considerable, and in fact the Trust Board would have been required to think very seriously about whether we're going to go through a winding up on the basis of insolvency. There's shed loads of money involved in that, if you'll excuse the colloquialism. So the auditors were extremely pleased that they were able to report that. And in governance terms and due diligence terms, I'm equally extremely pleased that we're able to tell this committee that this has been able to be done this way.
No, thanks. Yeah, I mean, that's what I thought it was. I thought it was probably regards to going into administration. The only other point I had was just clarity on 3.6. I'm not a fay with gift aid exactly how it works, but gift aid, how there seems to be large sums of money which look very fruitful. So just how could that be described further, please?
So maybe if this goes back to the split between the Trust and CDC, when CDC was trading, for a considerable period of its time, it was trading mainly as the property division of CDC. Easterbrook was very much there and was run through the income that came from the property income. The property income in those days clearly well exceeded the expenditure. Therefore, what CDC did was it was able to gift aid its profit each year to the Trust. The Trust then used the profit to enable it to spend money on buildings, to spend money on upgrades of buildings and things like that. As time has gone on and Neuros came on stream and Easterbrook Hall has now started to operate on a much wider remit, the profits coming from the building operations or the rental operations have not been as high in terms of being counted against expenditure. So where we are now is that the last amount of gift aid which was available was in fact expended by the CDC on the completion of Neuros. What we're now doing is we're looking to rebuild that same operation. We won't need gift aid because any of the income that comes in will come straight to the Trust, and the Trust will then expend it in terms of its charitable purposes. And no, sir, it was not a tax dodge.
I was going to say, if that had been Donald Trump, they would have said it was a tax dodge, but it's no.
Ivor.
Chair, with regard to 3.3, the reserves policy, the group has total reserves of 426,000, 427,000, looking to have free reserves of 250,000. where are we within that target of 250,000 free reserves? Because it just says a total reserve of 426,000, and it says it may take 5 years to get to the budgeted 250. Can we take it that we're sitting with about 50 just now and we're hoping to get 50 every year?
The intention, sir, is that it will be built up in increments of 50. With luck, it will probably be built up in bigger increments. I think we had to be realistic when we were reporting back to the external auditors as to how we were going to build up this reserve. The issue at the moment is I think there are reserves there. I think that the reserve balances will go up to about £100,000 at the end of the current financial year. Therefore, the aim of achieving it over 5 years has already been reduced, and we will achieve it over 4 years. But the intention is to make sure that the Trust has a reserve balance available to it, equating to 3 months' salary costs going forward. At present, it does not.
Any other members' questions? So in terms of timescale for the full accounts, I presume that the anticipation will be that we'll have the full accounts to the next meeting of the subcommittee. Would that be the intention? Yeah.
The intention is, and it's unfortunate, had I been able to tell BDO a bit more quickly, we might have had the accounts to the Trust Board, which met last Thursday. As it is, the next Trust Board meeting is on the 15th of December, and I'm largely then dependent on your timetabling, Chairman, as to whether you want the accounts to come sooner, or if you're happy for them to come to the next 6 monthly performance reporting arrangement that we have.
I'm assuming there'd be no problem with circulating a copy of the accounts to members, would there? So once they're available, we could circulate that to members and then consider them at the next meeting if members are happy with that. Okay, can we turn to the recommendations? Members happy to note the report? And any other aspects of the report to refer to the Trust, other than the fact that we'll have the accounts circulated? Okay. Thank you very much. Okay. And can we turn now to item number 7, which is the draft version of the Crichton Trust strategy. Can I ask the Director if there's anything to add to the report before members?
Nothing to add to the report, Chair. Thank you.
Okay, can I ask if there are any members' questions on the draft report? Ian?
Thanks, Chairman. Just in regards to, I think, so I'm clear, I've read, didn't read it all, but I read most of the strategy itself. I will read it all in full and in detail. Outlined quite clearly it's a draft. At what point does it become a full and final? Is that as of today? Is that for the Trust to decide actually? And 3.5, following the consideration of the draft strategy by stakeholders, the Trust will develop a new business plan for 2017 onwards, and that'll be brought back to this committee. Any indication when that'll be?
You are our last consultees. We've consulted the universities, we've consulted the Crichton Campus Leadership Group, we've consulted the Crichton Foundation, the Health Board and the Council. We're just by dint of your meeting cycle last in line, sir. So we're looking to get feedback from this committee, which will enable us to take all the comments away and finalise the strategy. We'll then start working on a business plan going forward with the intention that the business plan will come to the next meeting of this subcommittee for approval or alteration or amendment or whatever the subcommittee deems appropriate.
Members are being asked today to endorse the strategy if you so wish to. Any other questions for clarification, Jane?
It's become immensely fashionable to talk about asks.
Asks.
Asks, yes,
Right.
asks. I was just wondering whether the Trust really has any particular asks of the Council with respect to fulfilling its remit. So you can certainly ask. And what should the Council be doing maybe to assist particularly? And what should members be concentrating on and talking to other people about with respect to bringing this forward?
And the more cost effective they are, the better, I think.
The Chief Executive has just indicated he wishes to leave the answer to that question to the Chairman. First of all, thank you for asking about asks. And secondly, let me say this, that I think first thing I would ask is that we continue this very constructive relationship we've managed to establish over the last couple of years. I referred to the changes that were that happened after the consultants' report, and I think nobody should underestimate the change in culture for so much the better that's happened as a result of that. Whatever the individual components that have been, we've got a dialogue that reflects exactly the right kind of cascading influence from the council to the trust, to our stakeholders and partners. And I believe that that's beginning to work extremely well. And the consultation process we've carried out on our strategy has demonstrated that there's a huge amount of goodwill for doing the kind of things that the trust can and should do. So continuing the constructive dialogue is the first ask. The second ask will probably always concern money, but I would accept the onus not to ask for money unless we've got a good case for it. You know, an open door for coming with good ideas on that we can add value to and hence should be taken seriously, which is what setting up the trust initiative is all about in the first place. I think is in general terms what I would suggest. And maybe my third ask is simply, now that we know, next time we meet, ask a question again and we'll maybe have some specifics. But I do think that the creation of relationships is something that we've concentrated on so much and is beginning to bear fruit, that the asks are all in that kind of area at the moment.
Thank you very much for that, Graham. That answers your question. It didn't cost a great deal of money. It was a very positive thing. I think it would also be appropriate for me to place on record thanks to Graham for all his work as a member. 11 years, I think you've been a member of the trust now, is that right, Graham? I remember being on the trust when Graham was on the trust. I think he's aged an awful lot better than I have during that course of time. But Graham is obviously stepping down from the trust, and this will be his last meeting of the subcommittee. I don't think it's coming to the subcommittee meetings it's made him change his mind and decide to step down, but I just want to place on record, and I'm sure speak on behalf of the whole committee, our thanks to you for all the work you've done as a member of the trust and obviously in your chairmanship in recent years. I think steering us a direction that actually is delivering before us today, I think, a very positive strategy document. I think the objectives are incredibly sound. I think it encapsulates the real direction of travel that we wish to see the Crichton site go in, and I think we really look forward to obviously seeing that 3-year business plan in the months ahead that actually really delivers on these objectives. But thank you very much indeed, Graham, for that. Okay, members, can we turn to any recommendations? Okay, members, happy to endorse the draft strategy before us. Yeah. Okay, thank you very much indeed.